I presume we're live now.
You are live, and there are some attendees joining us in, and we are also live on YouTube. So best of luck, everybody.
I'll just give it a minute so that everyone has a chance to log in.
So you have about 30 attendees now joining us there from around Ireland and elsewhere.
Well, you also have them. I sent out YouTube connections as well, Brian.
Yeah, I can see there's some people watching online as well. I can see there's a number of people watching through YouTube.
Okay. Look, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Resurgence 25X Viability session in partnership with Dr. Fergal O'Neill of APCO and with the support of Waterford City and County Council. We've a busy hour lined up for you as we explore 5 ideas to get Waterford moving again post-COVID. And these ideas came about through our first Resurgence 25X and subsequent radio series on WLR's Hot Desk. It was impossible to look in detail at all the wonderful ideas that we received at this point. So we've selected 5, and today we'll take a deep dive into whether these ideas can be brought to fruition in the months and years ahead. However, we've kept the other ideas, and we'll certainly look at adding them to the billing at another event in the future. Working with Fergal on this initiative has been a tremendous experience. His passion for Waterford is inspiring, and of course, it's wonderful to see the spin-offs from this that are going on at the moment, like the recent Resurgence 25X in the arts and the upcoming one for health. This is how we enact change, by coming together and taking control of our future. There are so many positive things happening in Waterford right now. The North Quays, the Technological University, the airport, the urban renewal works that were announced recently, all of which have funding, but have yet to get over the line. We need to step up now as a business community and do our bit to ensure sustainability and growth of the city and county. And today, that's what it's all about. Our 5 ideas, if viable, would make a huge difference to Waterford. And our panelists are here today to answer our questions on can it be done and how can it be done. So please feel free to get involved in the discussion by using the chat box at any stage. After today's event, we'll collate the information, analyze your questions, and move to the next stage, which is the implementation stage. And some ideas may not prove to be viable, and that's okay too. That's what today is all about, teasing out the ideas that will work and moving forward with them. It doesn't mean that we'll discard the others, but we will do, but what we want to do is focus on the ones that can be achieved in the short to medium term. Before I conclude, I'd like to thank all of our panelists for taking part and being as enthusiastic about Resurgence as we are. So to get things underway, I'll hand you over to our hosts, Dr. Fergal O'Neill of APCO and our own Linda Lawton, our operations officer. So thank you very much and enjoy the session.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. We're keeping well away from each other, so we'll be veering in left, stage right. That's the way we're going to do it today. Our first idea, which is a fascinating one, and it's one of its time, and it's one that's come out of COVID nearly, is a network of remote working hubs across the county. We have a guest to speak to us about that, but before that, what we're going to have is some input from An Tánaiste Leo Varadkar, who sent us this message and just a few short words about this idea. I'll pass you over to Brian to make that happen.
Hello everyone. First of all, my thanks to Waterford Chamber for inviting me to contribute today to the Resurgence 25X series. I believe the series has stimulated some really interesting ideas about how companies in Waterford City and County can develop over the coming years. It's great to be part of the conversation. We know that the world of work is constantly evolving, and we've seen this over the course of the last decade as technological developments have transformed enterprises, presenting new opportunities and also new challenges. COVID-19 has accelerated the pace of that change. Almost overnight, people shifted to working remotely, and businesses had to adopt their models. In time, the pandemic will be over, but remote working will be part of the pandemic's legacy, part of the new normal. In the future, remote working will play a much bigger role in our society than it ever has before. And we know that employers and employees alike will want to take advantage of the benefits it has to offer. You might wonder if there's a role for the office in all of this in the future, and if we need new developments like the North Quays project. Well, I believe we do, because we'll need the office just as much as we needed it before, but we'll use it for different things. It will be a creative place where we bring people together to brainstorm, innovate, collaborate, to meet clients and to make plans. The majority of people want to work in a blended capacity, working from the office some days and from home on other days, or working from a hub. On balance, increased remote working will be for the better. The positives will be evident in Waterford as they will be across the country. Remote working can result in less commuting, fewer greenhouse gas emissions, and more time for family and leisure. New job opportunities will be created for people who want to live in rural Ireland, for people with disabilities, and also people with caring responsibilities. It'll provide opportunities for smaller towns and villages as they benefit from new investment, footfall, and local spend. As with any great opportunity, there are also risks, and these need to be managed. We don't want to see our city centres hollowed out. Talent can remote work from almost anywhere in the world, so we need to make sure our cities are vibrant, livable places that attract skilled people. I think Waterford has all the ingredients to be an attractive place to live, work, visit and invest. With financial assistance from government, it's developing the Cultural Quarter and the Viking Triangle, as well as the North Quays, and its plans to become a decarbonising zone and cut carbon emissions by 70% per annum are very welcome. As we all know, the Dacia Greenway is a phenomenal success, and the establishment of a technological university for the South East, centred in Waterford, is at hand. We all want a more even spread of jobs across the country, and not to lose them abroad. We want to retain the creativity and innovation that is strong in our enterprises, while ensuring that people can disconnect when the workday is over. So with these opportunities and challenges in mind, my department published the National Remote Work Strategy in January. The strategy aims to ensure remote work is a permanent feature of working life in a way that maximises economic, social and environmental benefits. We're aware that the effects of remote working can be substantial and can fundamentally change the nature of where, how, when and why we work. The strategy is built on 3 pillars. Number 1, creating a conducive environment for remote working. Number 2, developing and leveraging our remote work infrastructure. And 3rd, building a policy and guidance framework. Already we've taken the first big steps. We now have in place a code of practice on the right to disconnect. And we've also taken the first steps towards legislating for the right to request remote working. The public consultation is currently live, and I encourage you all to make a submission to it. Infrastructure will also play a pivotal role in developing remote work nationally. Across the country, there are numerous examples of innovative, vibrant and sustainable hubs, and the strategy aims to develop and leverage this infrastructure. A national network of remote working hubs will offer the chance for employees to work closer to home, but still within an office environment. The development of a national hub network is currently underway and will bring together hub operators and managers from all across the country. The network will build a community that can share challenges and solutions as peers, as well as becoming a vehicle for support and advice from state bodies and other stakeholders. Ireland's hub ecosystem is striking in the depth of quality and scale of diversity in what is offered. There are hundreds of different hubs, serving an even more diverse client base, from high-end state-of-the-art commercial enterprise spaces like Dog Patch Labs in Dublin, for example, to social enterprises like the St. Columba's Credit Union Limited Enterprise Centre in Galway. Bringing together all of these with policymakers to work together and learn from each other will be one of the network's biggest strengths. Under the National Remote Work Strategy, we'll be making significant investment in hubs and infrastructure in underserved areas in particular. The National Broadband Plan, now very much underway, will complement all of this. We'll also map and classify all existing hubs to ensure we have a strong national data available on hub infrastructure. The Western Development Commission is currently carrying out a survey as part of the National Hub Network project, and I'd urge any hub operators to register with them and complete the survey. As well as helping us to develop a richer understanding of the facilities and services on offer across the country, it'll also enable hubs to keep up to date with developments and announcements on funding opportunities for the hub network itself. In undertaking these steps, we aim to move forward to ensure that remote working becomes a permanent feature of the modern workplace in a way that benefits employees and employers alike. So thanks again for having me here, and good luck with your discussions today.
So I think An Tánaiste made it pretty clear that this is where we're going. The current situation in Waterford is we have, a few hubs in Waterford City. We have one hopefully coming through in Dungarvan. We have lots of more rural towns and areas that would be really viable for this idea. If you take as an example in County Clare, Ennisdiamond, Feakle, Kilrush, Milltown, Malby, there are hubs in these particular towns. They're definitely not huge towns. They're very much rural towns, apart from Ennisdiamond. Well, people of Ennisdiamond would think so. They would think they're very much a bigger place than a rural town, calling them that. But they're a great town. But the idea really is it's very viable in rural areas. But to really have a look at that, we're just going to have Seamus Kilgannon from workLAB, who basically has a hub in the city, just to kind of talk us through what he thinks of this idea for the county and just to go through the challenges. So Seamus, if you just want to give us an idea first of what you think of the idea, and then we might just go through a few questions and answers around that, Seamus.
Hello, Richard, and hello to everybody. Look, it's a very good idea overall in that work is changing from what we've traditionally known it as. And it's not, people have talked to me and said, oh, is work changing totally? It's not, it's just another way of working. There's plenty of, businesses where people actually use the term be crude, but they make stuff, or you have to go to hospital, you have to go into factories to make stuff, construction sites. So it's not open to everybody. So it's just another alternative. But if you stand back and look at it, take business one side, it's the right thing for people, and it's another option in terms of how people work. And it's be interesting how I think people in the future will choose careers based around where they're going to work. So I'm totally in agreement with it, and not even from a business perspective, workLAB we would have started 3 years ago, and it's progressed very, very quickly. And we have over 28 clients, over 140 people work out of workLAB in a kind of a hybrid fashion, in that aside from COVID, some people work 2 days a week in the office, 3 days at home, vice versa, and we see people coming and going.
Yeah. And Seamus, just as your hub is within a kind of an urban environment, what about in the rural area? Are there particular challenges for setting up hubs in rural areas?
Yeah, I suppose the challenges, the challenges is what type of a hub do you want? What sort of quality or what type of facility do you want? Do you want to just put a desk in there? Which is, if you just do that, then you are into the isolation factor of, you need to be careful about what we do with people. We don't want somebody who's, walks from their house, goes 2 miles down the road, drop their kids to school, go into an isolated environment. The world becomes very small. And if that happens, and we do need hubs in these regions, we do need to make sure that we have a mechanism that people have a global view of the world, in terms of that they don't become isolated, because at the end of the day, it is a global marketplace for people now. So you can actually work from in Waterford, you can work from Portlaw, you can work from Kilmacthomas, you can work from any Strad Valley. And if your business is in the right place, you can actually, it's not Ireland your market, it's a global market. So, but we just need to make sure that the socialization impact is positive.
And Seamus, would that mean ideally they're in towns, of a particular size? Do you think, Seamus?
Yeah, I just think that maybe I think it'll go more hybrid for people. Maybe it'll work 40% at home, 40% maybe in an office environment or something like that. And or I think what's actually more critical, even aside from people working on their own, like look at the opportunity for somewhere like Waterford to take people out of Dublin or take people out of we'll say the bigger cities. And we know all the social issues around how housing prices, living standard of living, and limitations on life and commuting. So it's an opportunity where somebody can come to a hub locally in Waterford, but can work from a Dublin company, and maybe is 1 day a week in Dublin and is 2 days a week at home, and is 2 days a week in a hub where they need an environment where they have meeting rooms, the facilities, the technology to be able to, so these are so it's very much a hybrid model. I don't think that and it's not one size fits all. There's going to be hubs that will be very high end. People will want that. They'll want a lot of technology. They'll want conference rooms, conference facilities. Other people will just need a space that's appropriate to work in for 2 days a week because they're in the office for 3 days a week, and they might just need a desk for those 3 days a week, and they don't need meeting rooms. They don't need high tech equipment. My biggest issue on this is the broadband plan. We need to have the technology there. Okay. And I suppose where I would, there's not a lot of discussion, there hasn't been a lot of discussion around the technology, and there is a lot of technology out there. Like Amazon's most profitable part of their business is Amazon AWS, Amazon Web Solutions, and basically they are the systems in place for somebody to work from home in terms of the data they can get, the security of the data in the cloud is very significant now. So you would have said 10 years ago, oh, we can't do that because either we're a legal company, we're a pharmaceutical company, we can't trust the data flow. You can trust that now. So to answer your question, you can work from anywhere. And once you use the proper systems and structures, there's one of our clients here in workLAB is a company called WorkAir. And they have solutions and systems that will allow you to manage all your data, how you communicate, and you can pull it into one platform for you. So they'll pull different platforms, make it work together, and you can communicate. So the systems are actually there. And I would be saying the discussion about hubs is around the socialization, around it's nice for family and all that, but the technology discussion probably needs to be a little bit stronger because the technology is actually available at the moment.
And Seamus, just to make it happen, like if we said a goal would be maybe 5 or 6 hubs in Waterford County, how would that happen? What would need to happen?
I know the government have announced significant. They've announced it. I suppose I don't know what how much money he's going to put behind it. We've done it in workLAB. We've done it in a high end way. It's cost a lot of money. And we've got a particular type of client here. We've got companies in here, and we actually got companies that are established companies, and they want a particular offering. So if you're talking about a space for somebody to work for 2 days a week, that's relatively cost effective. It's a desk, it's a space, it's a clean space. And once you have broadband in the area, so I would see that it does need to be funded. But does that model work for a privateer to do a model that small? I'm not sure. I don't think that works for somebody small. If you're going to go into it from a commercial perspective, you need to go big scale, you need to have the systems in place, and you need to have companies in there that can afford to pay for that, because you can't have somebody coming in and not being smart giving you 25 or 30 euro a day for a desk for 2 days a week. It's not going to work. It's quite simply not going to work.
So it's kind of a combination. To make it happen is a combination of kind of funding, government funding, local authority involvement, that thing to kind of give all the supports that probably in a more urban place you might need them as much because you have a volume of people. Is that what you're thinking, Seamus?
Absolutely, yeah, because it's like anything, it's about scale. So if you're in Waterford City, a workLAB or the other offerings will work at that point. If you're going to go out to one of the smaller towns in the area and have, we'll say, 10, 15 desks or 20 desks, that has to be supported by the state. It's simply not to be done.
That makes absolute sense. And just for the people watching, if you want to add questions and comments as you go, just put them in the chat box and we'll include them. I think what we'll do now is I'll pass you over to Linda, who will take us through our second idea. Thank you so much, Seamus, for contributing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fergal, and welcome everybody. Our second idea today is around a high-speed train to Dublin. This is something that has come up quite a lot in recent times, be it through this Resurgence or our Big Little Ideas campaign, which we ran last year. So to talk about that a little bit further, we're delighted to be joined by Barry Kenny of Irish Rail and by Marian Walsh of Carron Walsh. Barry, Marian, you're both very welcome here this afternoon. We're looking at, I suppose, we just heard the Tánaiste there and Seamus speaking about remote working. So making Waterford a more accessible place is obviously very important to us. I don't think anybody here today will deny the fact that we definitely offer the best quality of life in terms of what we have here. So to make us closer to Dublin and I suppose a more attractive place for people that need to commute, a high-speed train would obviously help. Barry, I believe there are a couple of different definitions. So there's a bullet train, a high-speed train, a higher speed train. Can you explain to us what exactly it is that we can have, what is viable and what we can't have?
Thanks, Linda. I suppose from an engineering point of view, everything is viable. But as you say, in railway terms, high speed is something that's really quite specific. It's typically lines that have this was line speeds of over 250 kilometers per hour, about 160 miles per hour, and it tends to be a completely dedicated to the purpose of that high speed. So no commuter services, no freight services. They tend to be completely segregated from the road network, so no level crossing. So it's a very high capacity, high quality infrastructure. And if you look at, say, the global capital of high speed rail in Japan, as an example, they developed recently a new Shinkansen line, about 228 kilometers long, at a cost of over 14 billion euro. Now, the reason that Japan can do that, obviously, is because they've got 97 cities larger than Cork, and they have the kind of, the population densities to support that. But so obviously, as I say, everything is viable, but what is very realistic and attainable is higher speed. Currently, our best journey time is just under 2 hours between Dublin and Waterford. We have a Friday evening service, which our district manager in Waterford, Emma Cotter, lobbied hard for internally and externally and secured. And when I'm going to my in-laws in Tramore, that's my train of choice.
Yes, and we lobbied hard for that too, Barry. So why are you coming? But we got there.
So, getting all trains under 2 hours, getting those more express services that only stops at Athy and Carlow to an hour 40 or less. Yes, that is absolutely something that's attainable and that we can work towards.
Great. So how do we do it?
There are a number of ways. The easiest way really to improve speeds is to take out stops. I'd probably be arguing with Kilgannon Chamber and other organisations to propose that. But ultimately,
they're not here now, Barry, so give us the
It is ultimately about building the infrastructure. Things like eliminating level crossings, things like looking at sections of double tracking, extending the double tracking, obviously, on the Waterford line branches at Kildare, and continually extended that. Looking at things like electrification, ultimately, we believe that the more involved in the project, if they're going to treble the amount of electrification on the commuter lines around Dublin, we can't stop when that work is done. We have to continue in order to decarbonise transport to electrify our entire national network, because electrified trains have improved acceleration, deceleration, far more efficient to operate, and as I say, build you towards that. And then improving the track quality, things like the track bed, is removing curves where you've got severe curves as well. So all of those elements can come together. We looked at a number of years ago just at, how would you take 15 minutes off the Dublin-Waterford line? And the quickest way of doing that, some track bed work, getting rid of level crossings and additional passing loops. The chances are you're talking about, you know, something in the region between kind of 50 and 100 million for that type of project.
Okay, so lots of money. Is the will there to do it, Barry? Is it in a development plan? Is it something that you say you took a look at it, but was it a brief look or a serious look? What are the chances of this happening?
I think when National Development Plan was developed, a lot of the projects, particularly in rail transport, were quite Dublin centric. And with Project Ireland 2040 now, and with the development of Waterford and our own cities, it's quite clear we need to build the role of rail and all public transport, both within and connecting our cities. So the current NDP review is certainly looking at that. And we believe, I'll be honest, I cannot recall a time, I'm 27 years in Iarnadare this month as it happens, and I can't recall a time when there has been the level of kind of stakeholder and cross-political support. So I do think there's a unique opportunity now, and there's an urgency as well in terms of that decarbonising of transport. So, you know, looking at that kind of Project Ireland 2040 timeline to, you know, to build that electrification, to do more electrification every year, to renew our fleet. We have a global plan that says we do not want to order any more diesel-powered trains. The last diesel-powered train should have been ordered already now, and we go electric, battery electric from here on out. And I do think that will and that political support is strengthening all the time.
Super. Barry, before I go, I just go to Marian. Can I just ask, I suppose from a chamber, business community and a city in general, what can we do to further this fight? Is there anything that we can do to get this over the line?
Well, obviously, with the North Quays development, it is, I think, going to strengthen the role of integrated transport in Waterford. I think it's about ensuring that we maximise that benefit from Project Ireland 2040 in terms of the compact development. You know, rail is absolutely supported and underpinned by higher density development. That's how you ensure the business case is as strong as it can be. And I think with the chamber support in that, it is something that we can develop. And ensure that we continue to build that journey time benefit. And in the meantime, you know, we'll certainly be looking at opportunities, extending, you know, that kind of express service more through the week, looking at other opportunities while also ensuring our Kilkenny customers are looked after as well.
I don't mind them, you'll be grand. So, listen, I'm going to turn to Marian now. Marian, obviously Barry spoke a lot there about development. You obviously as owner of Carron Walsh and with vast experience as in development management. Talk to me a little bit about, we've heard obviously about the moving of the train station. From an infrastructure point of view, what can we be doing here to prep for all this?
Well, I guess, Linda, there's a number of things we obviously can be doing within the Waterford Chamber and within the wider Waterford business community. Barry has alluded to the various different degrees of progression that we're going to have to eventually get to electrification and a higher, quicker commute time to Dublin via rail. But I suppose looking at it as an employer here in the city and an employer in Dublin, where our offices are always interconnecting with each other. You know, we could spend 2.5 hours commuting. Post-COVID, pre-COVID we did it, but post-COVID, you know, we're in the construction, we're in development, so we're going to be on the road. You know, we don't have the luxury of being office-based all the time. So from a business perspective, we really do need to focus on how we make it easier for ourselves. So being part of the wider business community, like Waterford City and Council, you know, their aspirations is to decarbonise the city. One of the best ways to help us do that is to have a good train service and to promote that train service and to do your best as a business community to get people out of their cars and to have a service that is reliable and one that's promoted heavily, because sometimes we miss the benefit. Like we're now all back refocusing on green, thankfully, and using trains and how can we better use public transport. If we can actually get more people moving into Waterford, which is our 2040 aspiration, you know, that train is going to help us increase the spending power in Waterford. It's going to bring more people to live here in Waterford. It's going to give us the opportunity to finance and fund our houses. We're the last city in this country that's finding it difficult to get the banks to support our house building because Waterford is not seen as one of the top 5 cities yet. But we're actually a suburb of Dublin in reality. You know, we're the quickest city to get to Dublin. We have ports, we have airports, we have motorways. The last thing we're missing from an infrastructure perspective is a faster service or a more efficient service on the rail, where you get people on that train and they're happy, they know where they're going. So that's kind of a long-winded answer in terms of the infrastructure, but hopefully it comes across as one that's been, from a business perspective, you know, very supportive of this aspiration to get a higher, more efficient train service between Waterford and Dublin, to allow that commute and to allow the two-way. It's not just into Waterford, it's two-way. It supports it both ways.
Absolutely. And I suppose we keep talking about going back again to the remote working topic, and you just outlined it there. The two-way street, it's yes, we want the benefits because we're all about Waterford and the benefit of that. But I suppose we want to offer, you know, a better life for our people here as well, so they can access Dublin and beyond internationally. We have so many international companies. I'm sure even from a multinational perspective, and you deal with a lot of them.
Yes, we do.
Would be, I mean,
it's
a step closer.
You've hit the nail on the head, because we do a lot of biotech and pharmaceutical works, and some of the life sciences companies, and you know, they struggle at times to get people to move to Waterford. You know, we're not on the glamorous list, and there's a lot of things listed in terms of commute and lack of services, etc., lack of housing. The train is, you know, it's intrinsic in that, in helping to make it work, in getting people to Waterford easier. You know, so yeah, you can live in Kilkenny, you can live in Carlow. You know, let's get something that let's use this public transport and let's work with it in terms of getting people to Waterford, because we do struggle to attract people to the city for a number of reasons. But you know, if we can offer an affordable city, a great lifestyle here in Waterford, which we do, and you can see the publicity around that for Waterford is really becoming strong over the last 2 years. We're really actually getting to be known as somewhere that is affordable with a great lifestyle. And if we actually have the infrastructure and the transport to support that and make it easier for people, I think we will achieve our 2040 objectives.
Great, and I know I jested about Kilkenny earlier, you know, and people jest about Cork. I don't, obviously, being from there, but you know, I suppose really, as much as I make a joke, that this is about regional development.
It is.
I mean, we would always say a strong city drives a strong region. So
exactly.
In order for that to happen, then I suppose this is the way we need to go, and have that accessibility and a partnership with Dublin to offer a real alternative to people who are looking to maybe relocate outside of Dublin.
Correct, and it is regional, and to that point, we will have our new regional university very soon. Like, train will be absolutely instrumental in that, in terms of, you know, making it attractive from students from Dublin to come and live and commute between Dublin and Waterford. You know, the train's going to help with tourism. It's going to add, you know, a substantial amount of spending, and spending power is what we need, you know, to get our city in particular, and I'm sure Kilkenny is the same, you know, to get it revitalised again, get some spending power back into the city centre. We need to bring people to do that. We need to make it easy from an infrastructure perspective to get here. And I mean, the with tourism, university, employment, and my fourth one then was housing, which I alluded to earlier. You know, we've got huge opportunity here in Waterford. We've a load of vacant properties in the city centre. It's probably going to become part of some sort of affordable initiative for the government. If it's not, it should be. And again, you know, ease of transport. Come and live in Waterford. You know, you can live in the city centre and you can hop on the train quite quickly and go back and visit your family in Dublin at the weekend.
Fantastic. Marian, thank you so much for that. And on that note, Barry, we want to get you visiting the family here in Waterford, coming down from Dublin.
Soon as possible, as soon as it's allowed, Linda.
Yeah, you need to get on that fast train, and then you need to get the old line back out to Tramore, so you'll be able to go the whole way and you'll be delighted. I think we have a couple of questions for you guys. Fergal, if you want to pop in.
We do. There's a few. We won't be able to answer them all completely now. There's the one issue is that if this took place and it was it's a big piece of work, would we have the capability here in Ireland with our own people to do this, or would we be bringing in lots of foreign companies, etc., to help us to do it?
There's obviously an international marketplace, but I mean, you take things like electrification, like the infrastructure improvement works that are needed. They're projects that we're undertaking. At the moment, we're doing works on the Cork line, for example. So there's Irish businesses and international businesses, but certainly if you like, the labour resource is certainly here. And likewise, we're doing the planning on electrification as well. So those skills will for those projects. It's a case of retaining them and progressing on other projects.
Okay, here's one not quite exactly about the actual high-speed bit, but could we put the Waterford train station underground? Up in the chat.
Underground puts costs overground. That's that's the issue there. But and again, look, I think the key is integration, and that's what the North Keys is going to give us. Is going to bring all this transport together.
And a very local one, I think, the Waterford to Rosslare route. What is there a progress on that, or is anything going to happen with that?
The local authorities were looking at a Greenway development there, but as you may know, the Minister for Transport has announced an all-island strategic review. So I know the local authorities have put that on hold, just pending that to see that if it is a line that would be looked at for future use. So look, it's obviously there, but as it stands, it was intended, and we were facilitating the local authorities on the Greenway development, but they just have put that on hold until the strategic rail review is completed. Thanks
so much, Barry, for taking part here and contributing so well. We're going to move on to our third idea, which is the Waterford as an outlet city. When I first heard this, all I could think of was, oh my God, that would be great, because I wouldn't have to bring my family up to the Kildare outlet. It's lovely and all that, but I usually try to leave immediately my family go in there, because it's such a struggle for the likes of me to cope with that, and to have it all here, and that my family could go in and have it right through the city, various outlets through the city, bringing more people into the city. I think the concept has been developed over the years. Initially, they were generally in far-flung spots. Now it's to bring them into the city and to live in the city. So we have here Richard Hazel, who's an expert in this area, who's basically maybe going to help us to think this through. And Richard, I just want you first to just the idea of Waterford as a candidate for this kind of a concept.
Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Hi, Richard.
I'm currently sitting in an office in Poland, as you might be able to see out the window. So my background is really Central and Eastern Europe, retail development. I've done a lot of it over the last probably 30 years. I started with a small company called Tesco that some of you may have heard of, doing site assembly work really for them, and finding out the best way of continuing the growth of that particular business. I also work for MFI, for IKEA, for lots of other companies doing this sort of thing. So just wanted you to know I've got a fair understanding of the problem. When we talk about an outlet centre, what do we actually mean here? An outlet centre is a large collection of retailers who come together to market their goods and services to a different market to the standard shops. Now, this market itself has evolved over the last, I say, 10, 15 years that I've been involved with it, where shops now are not just selling their old second-hand stock or the ones they couldn't sell before in outlet centres. They've got a whole production line set up to do a more affordable, more generally based, younger person market for outlets. What does an outlet actually do? It brings in people from a much wider district than a normal shop. I think that's the first thing to take in mind. If you look around Europe, you'll find that a lot of outlet centres are well outside of the city centres. They are quite a long way, are independent sites, because they pull in people from all the local towns and cities and whatever, and they stand alone. So they have to be able to offer a number of facilities, which is, well, A, shopping, as I've just described, but you also need to be able to offer the biggest one of all, which is the convenience of parking. They also need to have restaurants, cafes, anything else that will make a trip to a purpose-built destination viable. And that's what really we've been working on a lot in the last 10 years. But as you were just alluding to, the market, like anything else, changes. And I've been particularly specialist in taking some difficult retail locations for one reason or another, and trying to get them back into the market by using the outlet centre concept one way or another. This has worked quite well, especially here in Poland, but I've also done it in Greece, Serbia, and in fact, indeed in Russia. So it can be done, and I think it's good to use some of these examples, because like many places, city centres, I'm afraid to say, are dying from a retail point of view. They have been for a number of years. I don't think anybody's going to dispute that. So we need to do something quite fundamental to get the heart back in the city, which is to put something that people will travel to the city and be interested in, especially young people. This is really what I try and do. I try and give local authorities, local developers ideas about how actually we can do that. I become a sort of specialist in it in peculiar retail scenarios. The one thing I found over the years is the biggest problem in retail with retail development has been really the ego of the developers, I have to say. I'm sorry about that, developers, because I'm one as well. But the ego of the developers in building things that they liked, or for their local community, they thought was a good idea at the time. You know, I've seen it all, and quite often it doesn't work. I was involved recently in a shopping centre scheme in the centre of Gdansk, which is as some of you may know, is a very old seaside town, city rather, on the Polish coast, where a man had built a lovely new shopping centre. He was one of the biggest developers in the local area. Because he got free land from all the residential stuff he was doing, he decided to build a shopping centre. The only thing I couldn't quite work out when I first got there, it was why it was 200 metres away from another much bigger, very successful shopping centre. And then he was wondering why he couldn't lease the thing. Retailers are a bit like lemmings. They go, they follow the pack, they don't want to be on their own. They want to have a concrete idea of where they're going. It's sustainable, it's going to be well managed, it's going to be clean, it's going to be this, that, and the other. So a lot of things come into the retail mind. Secondly, when we consider something like this, please, at the top of the list, we must put in what the retailers want. Doesn't matter whether I like it or you like it, or in fact the shop owners like it. We will only succeed if we provide something that the retailers want and feel they can make money from. Let's be frank, that's the name of the game for them. Sure, they're into green things these days, and a lot of them are doing more and more in that direction. But at the end of the day, it has to make money. It has to be a profitable enterprise for them. How do you get that to work? Well, normally, if you took the standard shopping centre, you would say, okay, we're going to build a shopping centre like some of the models behind me here, which we've done over here. We're going to build a 70,000 metre shopping centre. How are we going to lease this shopping centre? How are we going to bring in the retailers, which is necessary to put the heart in the place? Normally, you start with anchor tenants. They're called anchor tenants because they tend to be the big guys who bring in people from all over the place because people like their name. They tend to be international names. You need those really as the base for any large retail development. Once you've got in the anchor tenants, people who come in where they want better terms than everybody else and other things, once you've got in the anchor tenants, then you can bring in the smaller tenants. They come in because of the anchor tenants are there. So you need a mixture of larger anchor tenant units and then a lot of small units to actually make the money from the shopping centre. When I was asked to look at this Waterford thing by my friend and colleague for a number of years, William Bolster, who I believe a lot of you will probably know, I gave it some thought and I thought, well, you know, what is going to be the big problem in getting this over the line when it's a collection of individual shops and premises not actually under one roof or under one management control. And that's what I came up with. If I'm a retailer, as I say, my most valuable commodity is my name. It's my brand name, it's my market name, it's what I spend millions on every year on advertising and publicizing and everything else. One thing I don't want to be involved with is putting my name on a failure. It's the key thing that retailers don't want, even more than profit, frankly, is they will not be involved in anything that they might consider could fail in just a couple of years' time. So the way to make this work in Waterford, as I said, just back to where we were, is really that the owners of the individual properties, the retail properties, would undoubtedly have to come together and work together as the only way it could work. My initial suggestion, which I've done before in other places, would be you would put together a retail management company, the shop owners company, whatever you want to call it, the shop investors company. This company would work together. It wouldn't own the buildings, but it would manage the buildings to set up a common theme of advertising, a common theme of management, of standards of management that retailers around the international world could actually accept as a viable reason for them to listen to the story. The main thing we have to do is we have to go to the retailers with a fixed plan. It must not be, well, this is an idea, this is that idea, this is the, no. Retailers are quite busy, trust me, they have a lot of work on different centres throughout Europe, a lot of them, especially the bigger ones. And they won't even come and talk to you unless you give them something concrete. This is what we've got on offer. This is what it costs. This is how we're going to manage it. This is how we're going to make sure that, you know, other competitors don't come in and do this to you or that to you, all the other things that retailers are actually worried about. So I think what would happen here is your landlords, your property owners would get together. They would form probably a marketing company of some description, a marketing and management company. This would seek to charge fees to the tenants, that's how it actually operates, for marketing and for management, and it's part of the service charge on these buildings. But when I look at the disparity between different shop sizes you've got, the only way this would possibly work is under the management company, you would have to accept the fact that there will be a pooled income from all of these shops into one pot, which is then distributed later. The reason for that, as I said, is if you've got larger anchor tenants, they're going to pay lower rents. They always do, and they expect to do that. The smaller shops get higher rents because they're working off the back of the anchor tenants. But what would be unfair is to come to somewhere like Waterford and say to the individual shop owner, well, you're going to get less because you've got an anchor tenant, well, your man next door is earning a lot more because of your anchor tenant. It just wouldn't work.
Richard, I might just stop you there for a moment, and I'll just move over to Niall, just from a kind of a local, just hearing what you're saying there, that particular point, and move over to Niall Harrington from, Niall, you can explain yourself in a minute, but it really to just take account of what's just been said there about the local retailers getting involved in something like this, and then we might just see where that goes. So,
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Niall Harrington, senior partner with Harrington Architects in Waterford, and we've worked around the world. Personally, I started work with Chapman Taylor in the late 80s, and we did a lot of out-of-town shopping centres, which Richard would be familiar with, such as would have worked on Lakeside in Thurrock, just outside London, Meadowhall, the Bullring, Trafford Centre, and places like that, which were of their time, which was the large out-of-city centre destination shopping centres, as Richard alluded to, the large anchor stores, lots of free car parking, a clean environment to come into, even if you look at, and a lot of other attractions there as well, such as cinema, food and beverage, trying to create a day out. It kind of replaced in lots of ways the Sunday visiting the granny every shopping centre instead. So like in the Metro Centre in Newcastle, they put in an amusement park with a roller coaster ride. So, I mean, I suppose shopping has evolved since then, and we've seen a number of reiterations of it. And I suppose the focus is trying to get back into Waterford in particular is, as the regional city, is to fulfill our role as a regional centre for shopping. And obviously, since COVID, but pre-COVID, our city centre in terms of retail offering has been diminishing, and that is borne out by some of the recent surveys undertaken, which has said that the surveyors are looking for more choice, especially in the city centre, and for a greater selection. And also, if you look at some of the stats around retail shopping or expenditure by Waterford people, our retail leakage is about 600 million euros per annum. I mean, when you factor that in, Richard would see that as a huge opportunity. And then I think from a retail city's perspective, adding to what Richard is saying, the fortunate thing that we have is we have a lot of the infrastructure already there. We're a city of narrow streets, and retail outlets like narrow streets and an open environment. They like a lot of food and beverage and cultural elements as well as attractors, because retail is all now about destination and creating a place for destination and accessibility. I suppose the challenge, as Richard alluded to, as part of the infrastructure, we have a lot of smaller shops. We have a lot of anchor stores that are already in situ that can only add to it. So, I mean, we have a lot of the ingredients. It's to understand how we bake that cake, I suppose. And as Richard alluded to, it's going to have to be a lot of the stakeholders coming together with a clear objective in terms of delivering. But I mean, as we said earlier, even with the train connection bringing back into the North Quays, I mean, now we're actually creating a destination in itself as Waterford City Centre. The challenge, for example, will be around car parking because retail outlets generally have free car parking. But I think a lot of the ingredients is there. It's to understand how we can deliver that. And as I said, the opportunity is always around the retail leakage out of the city. Can only be a good opportunity to build on the back of.
Thanks, Niall. And now, do you think, we have one question in a moment, do you think it's actually deliverable? Like, could we, do that thing, we bring people together, or how would we do that? Is there a forum for that already, do you think?
Well, I think the ideal forum is the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, where you've got, it has to be a global thinking and a coming together of the stakeholders to establish the opportunity. But it has to be, the covenants have to be there. People have to buy into it. I mean, the fact that and Richard will tell you more about this, but generally retail outlet parks are based on turnover rentals and stuff like that. So there has to be a lot of buy-in by all of the participants, that it has to come under a management company that has a clear management and marketing strategy, that the buy-in consideration has to also be given to, there has to be a commonality in terms of the marketing, the shop front, the appearance, the opening hours, it is a significant buy-in by stakeholders, but very doable. We don't have, like, say, for example, the huge capital cost if you were to go and start building this from anew. So we're a good bit there. It's the thinking is there as well. So.
Okay. Now we have one question, and Linda might ask it there. We'll just see where it is.
Thanks, Fergal. Niall, sorry, just on, I suppose, the actual concept itself. So just to be clear here, we're not talking about a new development. What we're talking about is identifying the space that isn't being used, the empty retail units that exist, the empty spaces where we can get that urban living over the shops, creating a vibrant city centre with, I suppose, in terms of how it would look. So be it that you'd have Tommy Hilfiger and Prada and all the different ones, but they'd all look similar, but would be dotted throughout the city centre. I'm right in saying that, isn't it? It's that it's creating what we know as an outlet village, but not in a village. It's in a city centre, not in one place.
Correct. It's branding the city centre, really, and it's taking what's there and adding to it. As you said, taking the vacant shop spaces and adding to that. So what happened is the city centre is marketed as a retail outlet village. And all of the participants in that retail outlet village, the existing traders and the new traders, or the vacant shop spaces, will come together under that marketing brand and under that single objective.
Which ties in, obviously, in terms of sustainability. You're using what you already have. You're creating a new vibrant city centre, I suppose, and also just in terms of, I suppose, bringing that urban living that's so important, and obviously through your own work in housing, that's what you look at as well. So I suppose things have changed with COVID as well, in how people want to live and how they want to shop, and they want to come into the city centre, and to have these outlets peppered throughout the city beside our existing retail offering. I mean, it's certainly something you think can be done.
Yeah, I think it's relatively, I won't say easily achievable, but if there's a meeting of the minds and there's a strong will under somebody like Richard's stewardship, who's been there, done it, and wore the T-shirt, I mean, that can direct and lead some opportunity like this. I think we've got to look at it and say, how are we going to re-energize our city centre, and in particular retail offering? I mean, with the demise through COVID of a lot of the larger retail stores that are not in Waterford, that we would have hoped to have attracted, that are probably maybe no longer in the market, or are going to probably have to recoil and try and find themselves again to come back into the marketplace. I mean, we can't wait for that. We just need to get on with our own thinking. And rather than following everybody else, have a new way of thinking that be unique in our own offering. As a historical city, a city that has a lot of cultural existing opportunities, attractiveness in terms of our visitor experience, and how we can pull all of those together so that, as we said, retail is now about experience and destination, and it's about spending the day. It's a day out. So I think we've a lot of those ingredients already there. It's how we add to them and we deliver this.
Perfect, Niall. Richard, thank you so much for your contributions. We could talk about this. We're already gone over time on this topic, and we could talk about it for hours and hours more, which I think after today we certainly will do. There seems to be an interest in this as a topic. So Richard, we'll certainly be connecting with you again. And Niall, as always, thank you for your commitment to Waterford Chamber. I want to move to our next topic. This one has gone bananas online. I think people absolutely love this one. This is the idea of a fixed indoor purpose farmers market for Waterford city centre. And I'm delighted to be joined this morning or this afternoon by Clodagh Griffin, a Tramore girl who has actually looked at this for Waterford, how it can be done, what her vision is. We're going to have a look at that. And of course, we're also joined by the world famous Darina Allen, who is joining us from Cork today. So Clodagh, if you don't mind, we might just start with you first, just to get a little idea as to what you're thinking, how can we do this? And I believe you might have some international examples that we can have a look at as well.
Yeah, hi Linda, thanks so much for having me. So yeah, just I suppose to kind of go back a bit on what Barry and Marian were talking about earlier, is that trying to get people to come back to Waterford. So I myself, born and reared in Waterford, much more person as you said, but I have lived for the best part of the last 12 years in Dublin. So I suppose I've seen kind of different ideas on this kind of a take in terms of a market as well in that capacity, but also, as you said, different international examples as well. So I think that's kind of, I moved back to now myself to Waterford last year because of COVID, etc., and just kind of getting a better balance, work-life balance, as they say. So I've noticed then as well, that being back here, that like it just, I suppose we're kind of starved of certain kind of elements of like in this kind of in this region, in terms of like there's loads of food offerings, but in terms of restaurants and cafes, but this actual idea of an actual purpose-built indoor market, even if it had partially outdoor areas as well, I think that would bring I suppose the more footfall to the city centre, and just bring I suppose more vibrancy to the area. So in terms of, I suppose, the market, like you're saying, the idea would be that it's high end, it would be a unique street food offering. So it's not just your typical, shall we say, fish and chips, which they obviously all have their own place in the overall marketplace. But the idea behind this is that it's more, I suppose, that it's showcasing local produce, but that like it might be something like lobster rolls, fresh dumplings, slow roasted beef brisket, that type of a thing. But then it also has the addition, I suppose, of the farmers market. So the overall, I suppose, the circular economy is that Mary and Pat, for argument's sake, are out front and they're selling their fresh fish, etc., in the farmers market, but they're also supplying the vendors then at the street food section of the market as well. So it kind of just has a nice knock-on effect. Local produce, obviously, where and if possible, but also keeping jobs and money in the city, in the locality, in the county as a whole. So it's just, I suppose, building on that, I should say, but also showcasing local crafts, arts, that type of a thing as well, but that it's done in kind of a fun, unique, kind of a vibrant way. So the whole thing is when you come, you want it to be kind of an immersive experience. You want to kind of get, like, I suppose, hit all the senses, as they say, you know, sight, touch, taste, everything like that. So it's kind of playing on that and building on that as well. It's not just about food. That's obviously the main driver in one way, but it's just kind of, I suppose, tapping into the other elements in that as well. So I have a couple of
if you want to share the images, Clodagh, and obviously you've worked extensively in event management. So you're looking at this, I suppose, as a business model in terms of marketing, in terms of footfall, in terms of the overall visual piece, managing that, I suppose, that whole expectation that people will have, and building on, I suppose, something that already exists. I mean, we obviously have a very successful Harvest Festival. We have amazing local producers. We have the Phoenix Yard already, Connell Street. And I suppose it's really just adding to what really is already there, isn't it? I mean, it has,
like, so the bonus, as you're saying, it's just a case of trying to bring it together in kind of a more cohesive manner, but it's more the sense that, like, as you said, there is fantastic, I suppose, examples of it already in play around the city, but in the county as well, but they're kind of, not all of them, just a handful of them are somewhat in disjointed areas, shall we say. So it's trying to bring them all to one city centre location, to drive the footfall, bring it back to the city centre, bring people in, and just, I suppose, show them kind of what we do have on offer here and what we can provide in the city centre and the region as a whole. So just here is kind of, I suppose, an overlook on certain elements, a kind of industrial kind of vibe of an indoor setup for a market. It just, and then I suppose outside it could be a potential look and feel. It's kind of more that repurposing, you know, shipping container units, you know, wooden furniture, kind of simple things that can be easily, I suppose, sourced, produced, manufactured, put into play. It's not something that's going to take a whole lot of time to kind of pull together. And then, but also looks and feels like this could be potentially a collaboration with Waterford Walls, for argument's sake, in terms of, you know, art installations. They could be involved with the kind of graffiti style things in terms of the overall vibrancy of it. So it kind of has like a lot of scope to, I suppose, scale up or scale down. So some of the locations that I looked at were the O'Connell Street area. As you said, Phoenix Yard is down there, but if the area was maybe pedestrianised in some way, shape or form, you could potentially have a purpose-built structure there for the indoor market there. Another one
that is part of the cultural quarter as well.
Yeah. So it's bringing everything into the cultural quarter, but also then the Viking Triangle here in Blackfriars Church. So there's already some of the infrastructure in place here in terms of like power and lighting and some of the drainage, etc. I know some work still needs to be done in this regard, so there might be a little bit down the line potentially, but it has the scope there to be a kind of perfect venue, shall we say. Yeah. But also, I suppose, bringing the Greenway into the city centre is a huge, bringing the start of the Greenway, I should say, into the city centre is a huge factor in this as well, because it obviously would drive tourism and footfall. People, as you're saying, even with the high speed train earlier, like, you know, they get off the train, they come across the bridge and they're straight into the cultural quarter. Do you know, so these are the ideas, or the examples, I should say, in Dublin, E-Charge, I'm not sure if any of you guys have been to that before. It's an outdoor street food festival. The Borough Market in London, Griffin in Denmark, and St. George's Market in Belfast are just some of the kind of top line ones. Other ones, then the English Market in Cork obviously is renowned for doing this on a large scale and doing it fantastically. But Vinegar Yard in London, Paper Ireland in Denmark, Big Feed Street Food in Glasgow, and Duke Street in Liverpool. So these are just some of the examples that basically, I suppose, showcase what can be done. And as you said, like, you know, the bones of it is essentially there. It's putting it together, having the right, I suppose, vendors, the right pieces in place, the right location, and then just to build on even what Niall was saying there previously, just about having a proper marketing plan and structure in place and actually doing this correctly and from the get-go, and not just kind of, you know, half attempted, shall we say, that it has a proper structure in place across the board.
Fantastic. Well, look, I mean, the concept is certainly there. There's loads of people putting in where their favorite markets are around the world. One of mine is in Middleton, just down the road. And of course, that was founded by our next guest, which is Darina Allen. And Darina can be found there most Saturday mornings, hail, rain or shine. So she's well weathered and used to it. But Darina, can you speak to us maybe today on your experience, I suppose, of setting up markets, how to run them, what's your advice? How can we make this happen? You're well familiar with Waterford City. And I know you have some past pupils who have successful businesses here. So lend us your words of wisdom so we can make this happen for Waterford, please. You're on mute now, Darina, so if you can just...
There we are, can you hear me?
There you go, welcome.
A fantastic session. I joined in close to the beginning, and it's been amazingly interesting and inspirational. Well, I started the first farmers market, I suppose, New Age farmers market in Ireland in 1990, actually, at the Gold Key in Cork, where all the other Shawleys, the proper Shawleys there, were kind of highly amused at the idea of me setting up a stall with 5 or 6 others. And since then, I've been involved in several farmers markets. And by the way, Clodagh, my goodness, what a wonderful vision for Waterford. And so many great examples around the world. And I certainly hope that this is something that you can embrace and deliver in Waterford as well. But I'm thinking of something a bit more closer to the ground, really, when you talk about Middleton or Mount Point or Douglas or whatever. This is a farmers market which would principally, and one could have both. They're not mutually exclusive, basically. But I think really a really vibrant farmers market with stalls, local stalls selling local food to give a sort of a taste of Waterford and the hinterland of Waterford would be an incredible. I think you already have a farmers market there. Have you in Waterford? A small one. Have you already got a farmers market in Waterford? Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's coming in, Darina. I think maybe if you can, if maybe you turn off your camera for a minute, it might reboot it. Just right. In terms of the offering that we have, we do
stop video.
A market, a smaller market in the city centre. There's obviously a vibrant one in Dungarvan, and we also have one in Tramore.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, Darina, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you there.
Right. I'm not sure if everybody else can. Well, with a farmers market, I think one of the most important things is enough variety. You need, I would say in Waterford, you would need very minimum 20 stalls, and I would have thought 30 to 40 stalls to make it worth people's while actually coming and doing their shopping. So the wonderful thing about starting a farmers market as close to the middle of the city as possible, and you're talking about indoor, but a lot of the farmers markets are outdoor. And in Mount Point, for example, in Cork at the shopping centre there, on fine days, it's out in the front of the shopping centre, and on wetter days, they can move in onto the car park there. The shopping centre there, interestingly, invited the farmers markets to set up, as do many supermarkets, because they realise that it will give such a boost to their business. Thursday in Mount Point is an example, linking the two things together. Thursday was the quietest day of the week in that shopping centre. And then they decided to start a farmers market there. It's run as a business and by Rupert Hugh Jones. And basically within a couple of months, Thursday morning is the busiest day of the week, the time of the week there, even busier than Saturday. So it's really important if you're starting a farmers market. Sometimes local businesses get a bit concerned and think, oh, they're going to take some of my business from me. So it's really important for them to get them on board as well. And because the reality is, anywhere you have a successful farmers market, and you need the variety, you need the two things, it boosts the actual business in many of the other businesses around. So that's a very important thing. And actually, there's plenty of research to prove that, at least 30%, and now oftentimes much more. So you bring a different kind of customer in very often, who are looking for something different. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hi, Darina. Yes, I can hear you. Sorry, the Waterford Chamber are just sorting out some technical issues on their side, but you're coming across perfectly. Thank you.
Oh, that's okay. Well, I can't remember where I was there, but anyway, so it boosts the business in business for everybody. It's important, so important now, that it's as close, if possible, to the city centre as possible, to bring people back into the city, so it really does lift all boats, so to speak. And also the other thing a farmers market does, what you need to sell in a farmers market is actually kind of produce you can't get in the local supermarkets and shops, and often food is small production. And the other thing it does is, if there's a farmers market, it's an opportunity for people in the area living around the city or even out in the country in the hinterland of Waterford to actually say, well, maybe I'll grow this in my garden and I can sell it in the farmers market, or maybe I'll rear this, or maybe I'll do this, and so on. So it creates opportunities for many people to have an extra opportunity to, you know, add a little extra income. And very often, so small is to a great extent beautiful here. And to be able to get some, for example, asparagus in season, sea kale, which you may not normally be able to get, really fresh fish. And then, you know, sort of, for example, somebody rearing really good free-range organic chickens in the area? Is somebody doing really good heritage pork? The sort of thing that you find quite difficult to actually find in the normal retail system. So it needs to be, there needs to be a difference there. I've just made a, now the other thing that's vitally important, and it's been referred to by several other speakers, is car parking. You need to have somewhere. They need to have plenty of space for cars to park, free, and also it drives other businesses crazy if the farmers market is actually creating a traffic problem. So that's something not insignificant to think about. So the now a few little, so it can be, there are different models. It could be just food. Middleton is just food and some plants, because that, when I started the Middleton Farmers Market, oh golly, 20 something years ago now, basically that was the greatest need in the area, was for local people to be able to get local food, and local farmers to be, and producers to be able to actually sell their produce directly to people who wanted that kind of produce. This was at a time, by the way, when the supermarkets had just gone over to a central distribution system. So it was quite, and at that stage they had a policy where they were, the local supermarket connected shops actually were penalized if they bought more than a certain percentage of local produce. That's, I think, changed now, fortunately, but basically setting up a farmers market then managed to bring the two groups of people together. And so you need a real point of difference. So that's one, is just food. Then there's other models, like, for example, Skibbereen Farmers Market, which is a really vibrant farmers market too, where they also sell some craft, they sell bric-a-brac, they sell pet food, they sell live chickens and anything like that. It's a fantastic market. And I noticed that Clodagh mentioned also selling craft and local craft, because a lot of people, that's also difficult if people are making something. It could be people knitting tea cozies. I mean, you know, in Skibbereen, it's so charming. Actually, Skibbereen is really interesting to look at, because you can buy anything from a silver spoon that could cost over, or ladle or something, could cost 1,500 euros. And I'm not making, that's not a slip of the tongue. That's actually there. Where they, you know, there are some beautiful little antique things in China and something, to a monkey wrench, you know, literally, and or local potatoes and carrots, wonderful fresh fish. And then, of course, the other thing that's really important is to keep the balance of takeout food, for example, food that's ready to eat, where people eat and sit down there. It's very important to keep the balance of that and the food, you know, fresh vegetables, you know, and herbs and fruit and all of that that's in season at that time. Very important to keep that balance right. Otherwise, what happens is, if you let the takeout ready to eat food go too high, what happens is it's not worth people's point. It's not worth people's time coming in to sell, you know, carrots and cabbages and whatever else, because people won't buy them. They're coming for a different thing. So it's really important that you have a sort of a wonderful variety of stuff. Other things that you can't get in local shops might be raw milk, for example, as much organic produce as possible, chemical-free produce. This is the kind of thing people are looking for now.
And that ties back into our sustainability that we were discussing earlier. And we're delighted as well to have Richie Walsh on the call. We'll be speaking to Richie in a minute from the local enterprise office, because I suppose really that craft, that food startup, you know, there's a fantastic opportunity here for the likes of the local enterprise office and for the likes of Waterford Chamber Skillnet, who support these businesses, to bring them together and give them the foundations of something that can grow on to success For example, I know that Sarah and Seagull Bakery started out with Skillnet. Darina, I know she's been with you. She now has 2 stores in.
We're very proud of Sarah.
Very proud, like a proud mama. That's what we want to see, is so many of these businesses grow. Clodagh, Darina, we could talk about this for hours, and I really want this to happen, and I think there's loads of people out there, even going on the questions. I would suspect this is something we are going to revisit again very soon, and we'd obviously like both of you to be involved in the conversation. We're just going to hold it for now because we've run slightly over time, and we can come back to some of the questions, but I think we'll just move on to our final topic, Fergal, if that's okay, because I'm conscious of time. So I'm going to move and bring Fergal in. Darina, Clodagh, thank you so much.
Hi again, everybody. We actually didn't get many questions on that. We got lots of comments, including fantastic. It's a good sign. So it seems like a very popular idea. Our final idea is moving the Greenway starting point straight into the Vincent Plaza area, which at the moment is a little bit lost. And the idea there really is that you'd have the starting point in a really strong tourist area there with the Viking Triangle and all the things that are around that particular area to bring people in and to improve retail all through the city, again, to bring people through the city to that particular point. I'm joined by Mary Houlihan from Fáilte, Ireland. And basically, Mary, if you just want to talk about it from a tourism point of view and your perspective on that idea.
Okay, thanks very good afternoon, everybody. I have to say, I think the idea of bringing the Waterford Greenway right into Waterford City would have significant economic impact on businesses in the city. If you look at the Waterford Greenway at the moment, it's currently attracting approximately 260,000 visitors annually and growing. And extending the cycle path would bring a large proportion of these visitors right into the heart of the city, and benefiting not only tourism businesses in the city, but also in the hinterland, because you're going to increase footfall right across the city. And I suppose if we take a look at the impact of greenways in other centres, and we look at places like Westport and indeed Dungarvan, we can see that the Greenway has been the catalyst projects that's enabling these towns to become vibrant urban tourism centres that are sustaining not only existing businesses, but also stimulating new economic opportunities within their local communities. And coming a bit closer to Waterford City, isn't it great to see how a village like Kilmacthomas is thriving as a direct result of the Greenway? And I happened to be speaking to Stephen Lynch of the Coach House Coffee recently, and he was telling me how he set up a 26-seated restaurant in 2017 and how successful this has been. And it's actually grown to become a 150-seated restaurant within a 3-year period, which is absolutely fantastic. And if we look to the northwest and we look at Mayo, the Mayo Greenway is worth 10 million euros approximately annually to the local economy, and 7.2 million of that expenditure is coming from domestic visitors, with 2.8 million coming from overseas. And I suppose the reason that I'm calling out the domestic visitor is because that's going to be so important to Waterford in the short-term recovery in tourism. And if we look at Fáilte Ireland data in terms of what a visitor is worth to a centre, the domestic visitor, if you get the overnight for them, they're going to spend 74 euros per day, and the international visitor is worth 96 euros per day. So if for every 1 million euros that's spent in generated as a result of tourism, that's supporting 27 jobs locally. So tourism is really, really important part of an economic mix of any destination. It's also, I suppose, worth noting that looking at the medium to longer term growth, that there has been a significant increase in cycling tourism. And in 2018, for example, over 450,000 overseas visitors participated in a cycling activity while on holiday in Ireland. But I suppose coming back to the short-term opportunity, COVID has really increased the appeal of outdoor pursuits, particularly amongst our domestic market, and all the indications are that that is going to continue into the future. So if we look at bringing the Greenway into Waterford City, it really presents a great opportunity for Waterford to take advantage of this interest that is in the domestic market, and by creating Waterford City as a destination that actually offers outdoor activities. And I suppose the ways that Waterford can take advantage of this is, first of all, it can position itself as the starting or the finishing point of the Waterford Greenway, and thus giving it a great opportunity to drive the overnight. But most importantly, I think businesses can actually leverage the popularity of the Greenway and look at creating short stay holiday packages, influencing and motivating visitors to locate themselves in Waterford City and take full advantage of the fabulous range of experiences that are currently on offer in Waterford City. Take a trip out to Mount Congreve, you can access that from the Greenway, but also to explore the wider county and really use the Greenway as the leverage to actually attract the domestic audience initially, but with that medium to longer term, looking at the international audience and winning it back.
Thanks, Mary.
Definitely a great idea.
It looks like it from what you're saying. We might just move over quickly to Ronan Mulligan there from Mulligan's Pharmacies, just from a retail perspective. What do you make of this idea, Ronan?
I think it's the local economy needs to be, we need to fine tune what we have before we start looking outwards and say, how can we attract in these new visitors? I think lockdown has kind of created an immediate love affair with our own environment. We've kind of turned our kitchens into kind of workplaces. We've turned our front rooms into workplaces. We've grown, this word hyper-localism has really been bandied about, but it's true. And, this affinity that we have in our local area, we need to leverage, literally as quickly as we can. It's the Greenway is just one element of it. I think retail is changing so rapidly. I mean, the elements that used to underpin our community, like the big department stores, are probably gone. You can see in Britain, they're shutting all over the place. But what's happening is the stores, say like John Lewis, they're been asked to go in. There's a demand in smaller towns, but they're coming back in small store formats, and they can showcase a lot of what they do through digital. So you shouldn't write them off, but we need, as a community, we need to connect in, is to build on this kind of lockdown and this commitment to Waterford and find there's a hybrid worker there that is going to make a choice to live in a city like Waterford, but we need to ask them what they want. Their preferences have changed. They're coming from larger metropolitan areas. And the old adage in a community, data or location is not really correct. It's data. What do they want? What are their preferences? We've built towns based on you work in one place, you live in another, you shop out of town, and you go to big cultural events somewhere else. We've got to create and develop on a concept that's really a 15-minute city that you can traverse and put the human at the heart of it again. I know it's very theoretical, but it's true. You put the human at the heart of it again, not just places, not just shops. The shops are going to change to be experiences. The concept of just picking something up off a shelf is gone. You go into a store for experience. Half your store, you should be able to change it within 2 weeks and create more space for emerging brands. The bigger stores are overspaced. The department stores, the Tesco's of this world, they're going to be offering space to local entrepreneurs to showcase their talents, to show what they can do through the digital world. You can take a small space and your whole brand can be on show. And I think you'll find there will be a kind of a great balance between, the out of town community space or retail spaces will still work. They're convenient. They have lots of parking, but they can showcase our talents in the city centre. So for the new, like if you're to specifically say about the, we need to connect all routes, cycle routes into the city centre to avail of the Greenway. We need to have good CCTV so we can go back to so we're happy with our kids to cycle on these routes. freely, like we did 30 years ago. So we bring people back into the city, you know, and there's a sustainability pledge about that. If retail doesn't have, you know, a sustainability pledge, it shouldn't be just to certain parts of the community. It should be to all. We need to be part of that. So we're entertaining people in the city centre. They can come in, they can cycle in, and our stores are going to change to reflect their changing patterns, you know?
Okay. Thanks, Ronan. And we have we have the concept of Waterford becoming a carbon neutral city. We you know, it kind of fits in with that area. But the whole idea of bringing all these folk who are coming from various places right through the city to get to where you know, Waterford began, that whole Viking area, and then back out. And there are probably huge opportunities that we haven't even got to from that very fact of doing that, do you think, Ronan?
Yeah, look, like a fashion store, for instance, could be a cafe in the morning, a fashion store in the afternoon, and, you know, provide cultural events in the evening. You know, we have to reimagine the experience that people want. You know, what's gone on under the radar for many is Amazon opened a hairdresser salon in London 2 weeks ago. Why did they do that? It's amazing. But they're actually using tech. They're a tech company, just happen to be in retail, but they know tens of thousands of products every day that are sold for hair use. So when you're going to get your hair done, you're presented with an augmented reality version of what you are. They're selling you products that they want to sell you. So I suppose we need to know where can we get that data. We need support in the community, you know, as to what shops do people want. I mean, city centres will want shops that you can't get on the internet, you know, hairdressers, bakers, salons. You know, you can't buy that kind of experience. So but we need support from the various government bodies. I think, you know, City Council will have to get involved in reimagining these spaces, set up a company that buys these spaces, that allows the artisan and allows the entrepreneur to showcase their ideas, you know, and maybe provide them at kind of a low cost, you know.
Temple bar style.
The leasehold model is just changing. It has to change, you know.
Okay. We have a couple of questions. Fiona or Linda has a couple of questions. There's so many people here.
That's all right, Carron. I've been called way worse in my time, I can assure you. Mary, this is for you. Just on how can Waterford Greenway retain its USP as more and more greenways and trails come on stream across the country? This is something I suppose we've actually kind of had a conversation about here. And when we look at the start of the Greenway, you know, we're kind of using the tag frame where Waterford began, the Greenway begins. So it's Ireland's oldest city, you know, Ireland started here, now the Greenway is going to start here. Do we need to come up with a new marketing tool to, you know, is this going to retain this USP?
So I think the Waterford Greenway has certainly earned its place and is really popular with Irish tourists. And will become popular with international tourists. But when you're talking about motivating a visitor to come to a destination, it's all about the experience that's on offer. And visitors there's so much on offer them, and they have so much choice. It's really important that Waterford tells the Greenway story, the Waterford Greenway story, and creates experiences that makes it differentiated within Irish greenways. So there's great opportunity. Also, I think it's all about scale as well. So if you look at the Waterford Greenway, there's a great opportunity now with the potential to extend it into New Ross and further. And if you're looking at attracting the international visitor, it's all about the scale of the experience, but equally then it's all about the quality of the experience that you offer.
Okay, fantastic. There are so many questions coming in here. What we're going to do is we're going to take them all away. This is not the end of the conversation by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, it's the start. We will obviously be looking at putting KPIs and all of the different things around these ideas that we have discussed today in terms of viability. We're nearly up on time, so if we don't mind, I'd like to bring in Richie Walsh, of the head of the Waterford Local Enterprise Office and with the Economic Development Team in Waterford Council. Richie, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
I assume your brain is overloaded after all of that, but knowing you, there's some good ideas in there that you'll get excited about, I'm sure.
Well, the first thing that I tell Linda is the whole concept of bringing together of this explosion of ideas is absolutely wonderful. I think it's so valuable to get people who are so experienced and to thrash out these kind of very ambitious ideas. Some of them will take a long time, but I would be inclined to say that none of them are unachievable. You know, they may take time and they may only be partially undertaken on a phase basis or something, but everything that we're talking about here today is possible. If I could just run down through them for the sake of argument, the very beginning, the discussion was about remote working hubs. I mean, in my mind, the whole idea of a network of anything is about people working together for cohesive purposes. It makes total sense. I'd be inclined to say that in the past, maybe Waterford didn't work together as much as it should have had. And I think there's a greater sort of a tendency for people to come together for collaborative common purposes now and engaging with one another. And I think that's absolutely makes sense. And to do so for enterprise hubs or digital hubs and like that just means that you're building experience and quality of people supporting one another rather than people just trying to do it on their own, like might have happened in the past with community enterprise centres and like that. With regard to the high-speed train thing, I'd be inclined to say that our primary thing that we can do here in Waterford on that one is to lobby and press and make sure that the national beings that are there invest in those connections into and out of Waterford. The one thing that we can do though within is to try and make sure our internal transport connections are very sustainable, very strong. Car parking where there's needed car parking and everything else that goes with that. But the main thing is we need to get into the habit of using public infrastructure and public transport systems within Waterford, whether they be rural transport or whether they be city-based things. Our commitment to carbon neutral, I think, is very big, it's very important, and we need to look at everything that will support that, while at the same time keeping a vibrancy in the city and a set of people that want to be there. The outlet city, I think the biggest opponent to an outlet village kind of a thing, city centre, is the historical concept of what an outlet centre was. And previously it was a centre that was on the edge of town, out of town, and was destructive towards maybe city centre vibrancy. Now that it's defined differently, like we've heard that today, I just think that today is the first day of opening up that debate and more needs to happen with it. But certainly the whole idea of a sort of a multi-tiered city use system with people working together, banding together, and sort of with all the stakeholders having a sort of a sense of both commitment to it and contribution to it, I think is brilliant and needs to happen. None more so, and you know, it's the same thing. The farmers market kind of a thing is, let's be honest, it is a first cousin of the outlet, except it's just, it's, if you like, a different set of people and a different set of providers of services to the city. This is something I believe very strongly in, and I think it could happen tomorrow. With with somebody championing the thing, and the way Doda spoke about it, oh my God, she could be we call it the young Darina, because you could see what Darina did when she pushed her knowledge and experience into this years and years back, and there are some great models around this. In my mind, one of the best models is actually the farmers market, and there's more. I think it's lovely because there's a sense of place with it, a sense of time, a sense of heritage. The Kilgannon one is very vibrant, so I think that can happen quite easily. Right, there are casual trading bylaws, but they can be dealt with and they can be walked through and walked around. But it does need championing. It needs a really top-class location, and it needs a sense of commitment from people, and it needs to be of scale. We have a small little one at the moment, but you know what? It almost needs to be. Not to be unfair to it, but almost need to be blown out of it and to start again, so that you're doing something that people really, really want to be part of. But and it needs to be weatherproof as well. So there's a number of criteria there, but in my mind, that one is doable tomorrow. But with a sense of shared commitment about it and a sort of coming together of the people that are involved in that. The Greenway thing into the city, that's going to happen. But it needs to happen in a certain way. I'll just give you an example. Last year I was over in Darina and I took the northern element of their Greenway into the city, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it until it came to the city of Darina, and it gradually evaporated as a trail, as an importance as it came into the city. It's vital that even when, and when is the thing that the extension is done from Bilberry right into the heart of the city, that it's done with care, attention, and that it never loses its sense of being and branding as it comes into the city. So it needs to be all part of that sense of a really top-class, vibrant place that people are really enjoying themselves, and you know, people want to be there, and you know, the farmers market needs to connect to the outlet, and the outlet needs to connect to the Greenway, and the high-speed train needs to be just on the outskirts and into the centre as well. So everything we're talking about today has connection, all about people coming together to do things for common purpose and to do them well, and to do things in a planned way. And in my mind, that's something that maybe we haven't done. You know, plan-led development is the way to go, and people-led development is the way to go. So I think today has thrown up some great challenges, none of which, in my mind, are not achievable. So hallelujah to Resurgence 25X, and on with it, and do more challenges by way of this. But take one or two of these forward and try and make them happen fairly straight away. You know, the city has a wonderful architect, Rupert Maddock. Really imagine it, a fella. He would be delighted, along with his team of people, to try and look at the city centre spaces to try and make them work better for people. But it is got to be done in a collaborative way.
Yeah, and absolutely, Richie. And I suppose the important thing here is that we're discussing all these. You know, they can be public and private partnerships. Like, we're not handing this to the council and saying, here you go now. If there is a willing to do that, to work collaboratively, as you say, and to get some of these things over the line, which is ultimately where we go now. So as we say, today was about, I suppose, looking at the viability, creating that sense of positivity. We certainly appreciate the council's support to be able to bring this to our audience today, and for the interactions. And I suppose really your support in this is most welcome going forward. Before we finish up, I'd just like to hand you back over to our CEO, Gerald Hurley, to close out today. We will take all of your comments. We will look at all of them. We are open to engagement, certainly, and we invite anybody who has a particular interest in any of the topics that we have discussed to come forward, because we genuinely want to make this happen. Just from myself, a huge thank you to my co-buddy, Fergal. We make a good tag team there, so delighted to work with Fergal again, and I'll hand you over to Gerald Hurley now.
Look, as they say, it's good to talk. When Fergal, Linda, and I were discussing this and what would success look like, we were thinking maybe one or two projects would get an enthusiastic response. I mean, just listening to all the interactions here and the contributors, there's no reason why all of these 5 ideas can't happen. Some a little bit sooner than others, but there's no reason why they can't all happen. And just from listening as a kind of a spectator in all of this, you actually think this is revolution. This will transform Waterford. All of these things together can transform Waterford. And as Linda said, today is an important part of this whole conversation. And now that we've come together, we now have to deliver. If today's attendance and interest is anything to go by, we now know that the will is there. And the next few years can be very exciting for Waterford. And we are actively on the move. The ideas shared today have the potential to bring around, as I said, a remarkable change for Waterford, be it for tourism, for retail and the footfall into the city centre, relocation and investment, all of which will make Waterford a better place to live, work and do business. And before I go, I'd like to thank again our contributors. That's Barry Kenny, Marian Walsh, Niall Harrington, Richard Hazel, Darina Allen, of course, Clodagh Griffin, Mary Houlihan, Ronan Mulligan, and of course, Richie Walsh. And finally, a very special thank you to Dr. Fergal O'Neill and to our very own Linda Lawton that actually make these things happen and make my life considerably easier. And a special thank you to all of you for joining us. Thank you very much. And we look forward to the next phase. Thank you.